Right, so I apologise, this is going to be a fairly long video covering a number of different things, from flight stack, DJI problems, battery chargers and various bits, and the reason for that is I'm behind in reviewing things, and I'm behind because, like a bear with a sore tooth, I've been trying to fix a problem that so far I haven't. So when I originally flew the DJI system, I shoehorned it into the ImpulseRC Mark IV, and it didn't fit particularly well. I had to remove a couple of the standoffs to get it in. So I changed my mind on the Apex, bought myself a new top plate and mid plate, and essentially turned my Apex into the Apex HD, which you can see before you. And just a shout out before I start to Unmantech. I don't know if you remember me mentioning, but I broke these little basically cross pieces on the arms that sit across the top of the arms, and I couldn't find any spares. And Cameron at Unmantech kindly sent me 2 through, so I'll be able to build my Get Mark IV back up again, and I'll set it up with KISS as it was originally, because it flew great. So this is my Apex, and if I just take the top off it, and I've basically just printed off a little session ramp, because it just helps the battery from slipping away. So I built this quad, and it's a relatively straightforward build. There isn't a huge amount of space in it once the DJI unit takes up the whole rear section. So all we've really got here is the DJI unit. We've got the Holybro F7 HDV stack, which is designed specifically for the DJI system. And then at the front I've got a Wi-Fi self-powered buzzer and my Crossfire Nano receiver, and then obviously the camera. I've strapped a capacitor to the side. It was originally down here, but with the issues I'm having, I've had to fiddle around with this quad a lot. And this quad has been giving me nothing but issues, to be honest with you, or should I say the DJI system. What's happening when I fly, or should I say what's happening when I arm, is the DJI unit is immediately freezing. So everything works perfectly, but the second I arm, basically the image on the DJI freezes completely. And the Holybro stack comes with a couple of connectors which seem really flimsy. They feel like the wires on them are really cheap. And my first thought was, well, it's a connector issue. I've obviously got some sort of bad connector or something like that. I'll change the connectors. And I did change the connectors, and I thought I'd fixed it, but the issue immediately came back again. And I've been messing around with this issue all week, pretty much every evening, trying to work out what it is. I've taken the DJI unit apart, and the problem might actually be the DJI unit. It's possible that the cable between the camera and the air unit is damaged, but I can't see where that damage is. And I've been going round and round in houses trying to fix this, and along the way what I thought it was is that the idea of this stack is we've got a relatively straightforward stack, but this one has been designed for DJI. So we don't have the usual points for VTXs or anything like that. What we have is this connector, which essentially gives you everything you need to run the DJI system. And part of that system is that this guy comes with a 10 volt regulator, which is used to power the DJI system. And what I found yesterday when I was messing around with this with the guys at the field, last seen at the British Nationals racing wearing DJI.
You were thinking of his brother.
This is insane.
You liking it?
I love it. Absolutely love it. I can see. Oh fuck. I can see. Like these bushes over to our right. Like you can see the individual twigs and leaves where it just would have been like a block. like a block of bush, you know?
Yeah.
You can see the twigs that the leaves are on, which you'll never see on analog. Never. And the colour.
And I've purposely put that on high quality mode
The colour's insane.
because that's the worst latency that you're going to get.
I can't.
It's not getting any breakup.
I honestly can't.
Because I've put focus mode on, so the breakup's just on the sides.
I honestly can't feel.
Do something a bit more.
No, I'm not. Never.
What I found is that on 4S it was absolutely fine and flew absolutely fine, no issues whatsoever, but the minute that I changed to 6S the issues came immediately back again. So I came home last night and thought, well, it's obviously the voltage regulator. I'm going to change the regulator and that will fix it. So I added in, if you can see at the back here, a little separate 12 volt 2 amp regulator, and it worked absolutely fine. And then when I put it back together again, I had immediately the same issue. I've checked everything I can do. I've removed the SD cards from the DJI unit. I've checked the cables, can't see any issue there. I've changed all the cables on the stack, can't see an issue there. Changed the voltage regulator, can't see any issue there. So I think my next thing to do will be basically just to buy a new DJI Air unit cable and see if that fixes the problem. So yeah, but onto the actual stack itself. This is, as I said, the Holybro stack, and it's an F7. It's got, I think, 5 UARTs, so it's got you covered, and you would only use this stack if you were running the DJI system. But I think my issues around this quad have sort of given me a bit of an insight into what I would choose as a flight controller going forward. And I think a lot of these DJI stacks or systems that are coming out at the moment, you can't access the regulator. You can access the normal 5 volt reg on the flight controller, but you can't access the, in this case, 10 volt regulator. And there's a lot out there with 8 volt regulators or 12 volt regulators, but the majority of them seem to be only run off the actual connector. And that sort of scares me a little bit, because these connectors are generally the first things that you end up breaking. And if you break the connector, you then have to try and take it off and hope you don't damage the underneath, so you can get to the voltage that you actually need. And it all becomes a little bit of a pain. So in my next build, I may just go back to a normal flight controller that has everything that I need, and either run a separate voltage regulator or just choose a flight controller that has, you know, 8 or 10 or 12 volt 2 amp regulator built in, but one that is accessible by pads. But the actual flight controller I think is fine. There's not a huge amount to say about it. It's got tons of UARTs. It connects up nice and easy. You don't have to do anything. You've got an SD card slot at the bottom if that floats your boat. And this being a Holybro stack, it's essentially just an Airbot board. So the ESC below, in this case, I think it's 45 amp BL Heli 32 F3 processor ESC. What it is essentially, even though it's got Teco 32 written on it, it's an Airbot Furling, just with a rebadge. And you tend to find this with a lot of Holybro stuff. If you're buying a Holybro stack or a Holybro ESC, you can generally find the identical Airbot manufactured ESC cheaper, with a different badge on it. So just a little tip there. But yeah, I've been flying the stack. Obviously it flew absolutely fine on my first test flights with this guy. This flight controller has been flashed with the CLI dump that Stephen from Superfly sent me, but I just haven't been able to test it out fully because I'm running into this issue. So I don't know what my next move is going to be, to be honest with you. I've got a few other tricks to try, and then, as I said, I'll change the cable. Just thought I'd show you how the Apex looks in its HD format. This one is obviously got the 3B 2207 motors on it, which I liked a lot on my Ichabod until that frame fell apart, and I just quickly last night just printed off this this antenna mount, which I'm not particularly in love with. And with regards to all the gubbins that came with the Apex frame, obviously I'm using the arm protectors, or should I say the wire protectors, which I quite like. I'm using the front bumper, but I'm not using any of the other stuff. And the little back plate which fits the TBS Crossfire doesn't fit on this frame because the standoffs are wider. So that's what's been taking up all of my time, which has meant that I'm really behind in reviewing other stuff. I will put timestamps in this video just in case somebody doesn't want to listen to my waffle, which I'm guessing is everybody. The next thing I want to discuss is a battery charger, and this is the Hota D6 Pro smart charger, which was sent to me about a month ago, and I haven't had time to do a video on it. And this is Hota are one of those manufacturers who make some pretty decent chargers, and you'll also find these chargers under several different names, Hobbymate and various other people. And this particular one is, as I said, the brand new one, but it's pretty much exactly the same as the majority of other newish chargers. So it has this same format as the ISDT chargers and the Hobbymate D6 Pro that I've got. So it's all very familiar. And one of the reasons I like these sort of style of chargers are, rather than sort of having to have or go out and buy your own separate power unit like the ISDT chargers, these guys have a built-in power supply, so you can just run them directly from the cable which they come with, and obviously that reduces the amount of power that you can put out compared to a standalone power supply, but it's still absolutely fine for the sort of charging that we do, and I'll put the stats on the side of the screen. But I've been sort of running this guy and testing it, and listen, it's a battery charger. It charges your batteries and it does it absolutely fine. It can do up to 6S. As always, it's got you can change the power supply. You've got your multiple different modes that you can choose: discharge, storage, balance, etc, etc. Obviously you've got your various million different types of batteries, and as I said, we can change the voltage, which is always a nice feature. But the reason why I've struggled to come around to do a video on this is because I wouldn't buy it. It's a really good charger. It has the standard, as I said, the standard interface. It works really, really well. It's accurate, it's quiet, the fan is really quiet. All of those things it does really well, but it has a number of things that really, really bug me. The first is this, which is the touch screen. And if you compare it to my other charger, which is this guy, this has got a lovely little scroll wheel which works absolutely fantastic, and it also has a back button if we want to go back. This guy is so much more clunky to use, and apologies for the noise you can hear. This one's got a lot of crap in its fan, it needs cleaning. This one's so much clunkier to use. For some reason also, this guy, you have to put your balance leads in upside down. So on every charger that I own, you put your balance lead in this way. On this guy, you have to put it in that way, which basically means that every time I use one of my other chargers, and then come back to this one, I'm sort of trying to put it in, and then I remember that it goes in the opposite way, and it's, instead of going in this side, it goes in that side, and I find the whole thing really, really irritating. Why they put it in upside down or different than every other charger that I've got no idea. You can see that it's got a 5 volt 2.1 amp 5 volt output there, and again you've got battery connector XT60 there, and you can power it on the back via an XT60 as well. So the reason why I haven't done a video on this is because it's expensive. I think it's about 60 odd quid, and for that money I just can't recommend it, because for about 20 or 30 quid more you can get this guy, which is exactly the same interface, a much better scroll wheel, and this guy has dual outputs. It also has the same 5 volt USB output, but it also has wireless charging on top as well, which is really handy if you're in the garage and your phone's dead. So yeah, so in terms of chargers, I use my ISDT charger, and mine is one of the older ones, which does me fine. It's just a single unit. I use this guy, which is my favourite charger, either just charging 2 batteries at a time, or if I'm in a rush I'll use 2 parallel charge boards and charge that way. And I've been through quite a lot of different chargers. I had this guy, which lasted about 3 months before it started throwing up error message after error message, which is a shame because it's really small and light, but I think they're super cheap, but they don't last 2 minutes. So if you want a battery charger, don't buy this one, buy this one. And as I said, this one is branded HobbyMate, but you can buy exactly the same thing from the same brand from Banggood or wherever you want to buy. And as you can see, this one will do 200 watt via its internal power supply, or up to 650 via a separate power supply. So that's it. Don't buy this, buy this.